Unholy Deification is the 13th full-length album from Incantation, and of course, most people know what this band is and who they are at this point. This is, again, the 13th album from the band. This is a classic United States death metal band, and one which many feel like helped define not only the New Jersey death metal sort of sound in its own right, however you define that, but also just a very influential band over the years for dynamic and atmospheric death metal that is conscious of the full range that was available around the time that they showed up. And as sort of an 89 formed band, this was always the group that had maybe known for their atmosphere and their aggression early on, but also their touch upon doom metal and death doom metal influenced work. Even some sludge and some side projects influenced some of their, bands like Funerus and whatnot. So after over 30 years, there's certainly a lot to get to talking about Incantation. But in this case, we can really just cut to their post 2012 releases, specifically probably Dirges of Elysium, where they had just kind of come back with their 2012 record, and they established that they were kind of back with maybe some different people involved, maybe a little bit updated sound, but overall, Incantation was still Incantation. Back in an age where everyone was kind of trying to sound like Incantation as atmospheric death metal became a thing. So they really kind of they did well enough to triumph over the zeitgeist they'd created and show up some of the bands that were influenced by them. And that was always an interesting thing, but they've kept going and they persisted with some records of, I wouldn't say questionable quality, but there's been quite a lot of iteration upon those basic ideas, keeping a live touring band going. They're still quite good live no matter who's involved. And as we get through that thought, we arrive on this record. What are the expectations? Well, I don't know. After Sect of Vile Divinities, I was kind of like, well, this is kind of just another record. I do like that they were hitting upon the thrash metal side of things a little bit more. The speed was picking up, but there was this sort of rocking, sort of strange element to it that felt out of place in their own discography in some sense, in terms of the leads and just some of the details that were uh, uh, it just didn't feel like an evolution of the core idea, and that was aggressive and attack. It was very kind of a laid back death metal record. That's fine, but um, anyway, we'll get to a song from the new album and see where we're at today. So there've been a couple of small changes. Luke Shively of Dismemberment is now the sort of second guitarist here, when he was a live member and a guest on the last record. And overall, I think this does well to suit this more aggressive, maybe more fully self-representative Incantation on Unholy Deification. Now, not only do we have this interesting kind of occult transcendence theme here, which is pretty cool. There's just an emphasis on aggression, which basically just translates to John McEntie's vocals are just a little bit more guttural. It's a little bit more imposing, and I think it really is a step back into something that feels more. I don't know how to say it. Deadly, heavier. It's something that you want from Incantation, because people have elaborated and expanded upon their signature over the years. That it's nice to be reminded that they can still do the Incantation thing and then have new ideas within it. And really, what a lot of this record does is reinforces that this is an old school death metal band that still gets what that is. And there are simpler pieces on here and simpler riff progressions on here, but they've created such a density of ideas in their compositions that you never get too stuck on maybe a half-assed riff or just an okay riff, and soon we're just moving on with a better idea, or finding out that that simple idea was meant to become more complex over the course of the song. So otherwise, we get more death doom. We get a pretty great sounding record compared to the last. We get just barrage of songs that cover the gamut of the dynamism and the aggression of Incantation you would want. I don't think that they're quite uh, blasting their heads off. I don't think that this is necessarily a Dead Congregation record, basically, but it does have that virility. It has that vitality to it that feels like it is more aggressive than they've been on their last few records, and more interesting in terms of lyrics. It does feel like there's a well thought theme here. So I don't have any really deep thoughts on it. I'm a very long time Incantation fan, and I always go and see them live whenever I get a chance. So I was excited that this was just not just another record. This is a good Incantation record, and I haven't really felt that since about 2014, to be honest. So this was an easy thing to engage with. It was a little blunt up front, and then it sort of eventually sank in. There's a lot of great variety here. Two pretty great parody between the two sides of the record, and just no real clunkers on the full listen. Maybe one or two just average moments. So it does get a high recommendation for me. I would say this is probably one of my mid to higher ratings of the month. It is quite a fine release. I really like the aesthetic and the sound, and all the extras that sort of push it over the top for me. So check out more details in the written review, and this album comes out the Friday after this one.